In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah the Almighty, the Lord of the worlds. May Allah's peace, mercy and blessings be upon His final and last messenger, Muhammad. And may Allah's peace, mercy and blessings be upon each and every one of you, dear viewers, watching this episode of your program, The Revelation. In this episode, my dear viewers, we are still talking about the noble position of the family in Islam. And we will be picking up where we left and the points that clarify and that reflect Islam's great concern for the welfare of the family. My dear viewers, let's now move on to the second of the points, which summarizes how Islam pays a great deal of consideration when it comes to the family. And this has to do with the fact that how Islam has shown great respect and honor for all the members of the family, males and females alike. And this is why it is very significant to mention in this context the hadith that was narrated in Sahih Al-Bukhari and also in Sahih Muslim by the companion Abdullah ibn Umar, in which he narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Every one of you is a guardian, and he shall be held accountable and responsible for those in his custody." And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the responsibility of both parents when it comes to the upbringing of their children. And here there is a very important thing that we need to highlight, because many parents think that all what they have to do when it comes to their children is to only care about their food, their clothing, and their education. As a matter of fact, this should not be the only concern of the parents, because alongside with this, they need to ensure the upbringing of their children according to the ethics of Islam and the noble teachings of Islam. And this is why in this regard the Prophet ﷺ instructed the parents to make sure that they train and they upbring their children on performing salat or the prayer, to establish the prayer when they reach the age of puberty, and before it to train them. And this goes on also with the rest of the acts of worship. And here there is a very important word that I need to whisper into the ears of all parents. And this is the fact that when they ensure the upbringing of their children on these noble ethical standards and these noble manners that Islam teaches, when the parents get old, their children will always be keen to show dutifulness to their parents, and especially when the parents teaches them the minimum amount of the verses and the chapters of the Quran, because for the parents, for each letter there will be a reward that could be even multiplied at least 10 times when their children recite the Noble Quran. With that being said, my dear viewers, let's now move on to the third point, and that's how Islam underscores repeatedly and continuously urges the children to show respect, obedience, and dutifulness to their parents, and that no matter how old the children are, or no matter how old they get, they are always duty bound to attend and to take care of the parents. And Islam clearly shows that being dutiful to one's parents is a very virtuous and highly rewarding act of worship. And not only this, rather alongside with this, we find that there are many times the significance, importance of being careful not to disobey, not even to offend any of the parents, not even by showing them discomfort, not even by saying even if half a word that would show or reflect resentment to the parents, or doing anything that would offend one's parents. And this is why disobedience and being undutiful to one's parents is a great sin. This is why every Muslim should be keen to show birr al-walidain, or to be dutiful to one's parents, as the Quran in this regard clearly states, as we can read in chapter Al-Isra, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا.
وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُل لَّهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُل لَّهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. And your Lord has commanded that you shall not worship any but Him, and that you should be kind to your parents, whether one or both of them reach old age. Say not to them any word of contempt, nor rebuke them, but address them in honorable terms.
Now, dear viewers, let's move on to the fourth point, and that's how Islam instructs the parents to observe justice and to always make sure that they safeguard the rights of their children, and to observe justice and equality in all matters when it comes to the children, irrespective of whether they are boys or girls. And maybe it would be sufficient in this regard to mention the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he was seen by a man kissing his grandson. So the man exclaimed, and he said, "You kiss your children? I have 10 children, and I have never kissed any of them." So right away, the Prophet ﷺ, in a clearly disapproving manner, he corrected his attitude towards his children by telling him, what should I do if mercy is taken away from your heart? i.e., you should have mercy towards all of your children. On another incident, it is narrated that the Prophet ﷺ saw a man just letting his son sit on his knee while one of his daughters or his daughter was not allowed on the other part of his lap. So right away, the Prophet ﷺ guided him to treat them equally, and also to let his daughter sit on his lap. So even when it comes to very simple things, the Prophet ﷺ was always keen to guide us to show equality to all the children as to how we deal with them. And like I said, also Islam instructs the parents to safeguard the rights of their children. And also, as you remember before, we highlighted the incident in which the Prophet ﷺ visited one of the people as he was sick. So the man asked the Prophet ﷺ about his money or property after his death. So he was asking the Prophet ﷺ to allow him to give away all of his property in a charity or in charitable causes, while leaving nothing for his children. So the Prophet ﷺ, as we learn from the hadith, only allowed him to give 1/3 of his property. And he even mentioned that even the third is much. And the Prophet ﷺ guided him and he informed him of the reason why the Prophet ﷺ told him this. As the Prophet ﷺ said to him, "For you would better leave your children with money and with property, rather leaving them poor, asking charity from the people."
Peace be upon you, my beloved, Ya Habibi, Ya Muhammad.
With that being said, my dear viewers, let's now move on to the fifth and the last point. And how is it Islam stresses the importance of maintaining the ties of kinship? We clearly see that, my dear viewers, Islam always encourages all the members of the family to maintain their ties of kinship by constantly and always, not only on certain occasions, by the way, by keeping in touch and by staying in contact with all the extended family members, not only when it comes to the parent and the mother and the siblings, but even when it comes to the extended family from both sides. I mean the maternal and the paternal aunts and uncles and their children and their grandparents, of course, if they are alive. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, highlighting this, he said that, of course, warning against not maintaining or severing the ties of kinship. It was narrated that the Prophet ﷺ has said in Sahih al-Bukhari and in Sahih Muslim that the person who severs the bonds of kinship will not enter paradise. And even in another Qudsi hadith, as a matter of fact, we learn that the Prophet ﷺ narrated that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared when He created the womb, as it is called Ar-Rahim in Arabic, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has derived one of His own beautiful names from also the root word of Ar-Rahim, and this is Ar-Rahman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared that addressing the womb or Ar-Rahim, that whoever maintains your rights, I will also show him mercy or her mercy. Yet whoever severs your rights or neglects your rights, he will also be treated the same way, i.e., they will be not really showered by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the grave sin of severing the ties of kinship. And especially when it comes to maintaining these rights, even when one's parents are gone or when they are passed away, still, on one hand, the children need to show dutifulness to their parents, and that's by making dua for them, by supplicating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them, and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower them with His mercy. Even after their death, still the children are required to show dutifulness and reverence and honor to the parents. And one way, which is the second one here, is to maintain the ties of kinship, as this is also an act of charity, and it is a good deed, and it has to do with showing dutifulness and honor and respect for one's parents. This is all the time that we have for today's episode. Of course, if you have any question, you are